Hello and welcome back to Confessions of a Midwife. Today we have beautiful Rebecca and her beautiful baby girl. She is 3 weeks postpartum and she had a home birth. So tell us a little bit about your experience.
So we had a pool delivery at home in our living room. This is our second child, and we had a home birth for our first child as well. I personally get quite stressed out in hospital environments, so I just wanted to control the environment as much as possible. And so that worked really well both times for us. It was just my partner present and then the two midwives who are community midwives who showed up for us.
Now, in preparation for the home birth, what did you have to do to prepare for a home birth or a water birth at home?
Yeah, so I joined a home birth WhatsApp group so that I could get hold of a pool without renting one. They're actually pretty good value to rent them, but if there's one for free. So we had to make sure that we had all of the additional accessories for that, make sure that we can fill that up at home and get it to the right temperature and the right amount of water. We had to, one of my friends sent me a hypnobirthing audio file, so that was one of my preparations. But also just writing our birth plan really and trying to keep it as open as possible to possibilities and potential things changing and how I'd like to control that in our environment if we manage to stay here. Yeah.
Brilliant. And hiring out your birthing pool, is there like a WhatsApp group is that quite available to a lot of the women, or
I don't
is it?
know if it's when we had the birth before, we were in Hackney, and there was a local group that was just run by mums in the community who ran a home birth group because they found it, they were really behind it, so they had a pool that they shared around. And the same thing happened here. Now we're in Manor Park, but I don't know if it's an East London home birth group or not. I've left the group now, but it's worth just asking around
And just browsing the net, really.
Yeah, just seeing what's out there. Like I said, you can buy them if you're concerned about hygiene, because obviously they should probably only be used so many times and you don't get to see that. But we used an inner liner, and we bought a new hose, which is sort of hygiene standard, and I guess it depends on your postcode really, what's available in the area.
So you need a hose pipe to fill in the pool, right? So
and then the pump as well for getting rid of the pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work filling in for your partner out there. Yeah. And now, when did you know that you're ready to call your midwife to come in and
Okay, so I think I downloaded an app and was using that to check the timings of my contractions, and I think we were probably down to 60 seconds every 4 minutes or something. It felt to me that the labour had really ramped up at that point, and it was moving quickly. This being my second child, obviously they're typically faster, the second labour anyway, so so I got my partner to ring probably at about 6 a.m. in the morning. I'd been in labour from 11 p.m. the night before.
Okay, so how were you coping with the contractions before your midwife came? What were you doing at home to cope with the contractions?
I took paracetamol. Mm-hmm. I put the hypnobirthing audio file, which was about 24 minutes. Basically, I just put that on loop, put earphones in, put an eye mask in, and just tried to get rid of every external stimulant around me so that I could just focus on, the experience of my body and how to sort of feel positive about it. I made sure that at about 2 in the morning, I woke my partner up and asked him to get the birthing pool ready, just because I was a little bit anxious that we wouldn't have enough time if I left it any later. But I tried to keep everybody in the house asleep as long as possible so that we all had as much energy for the battle ahead. So I just sort of wandered around the house like a bit of a zombie, to be honest. I even had a hood up. I think it was quite helpful having the indicators that I wasn't really to be talked to, because when my child, my son who's 4, woke up, he thought I was playing some kind of crazy game, which worked well at sort of not worrying him, and for him to sort of feel like something fun was happening. And he didn't try to well, he did, he came and gave me cuddles and things, but he wasn't expecting me to sort of get him ready for nursery, because I was quite clearly doing something else.
Yeah. And at what point do you ever feel like, maybe I need to go into the hospital? Did that ever cross your mind whilst you were still in early labour? Like, maybe I should just go in, or how do you control that nerve?
So I never thought of going into the hospital or birthing centre in the early stages, but when it got to 7:30 a.m. in the morning and we called for the midwives to come, and there weren't any available at that time. So at that point, I had fully expected that, to be the case, because I know it does happen in certain areas, and I know that there's a bit of a midwife shortage. And I'd sort of said to myself, come on, you can do this. You've done it before, so you don't really need anyone present. But that was not how I felt when I was in labour. I certainly did have worries, and I didn't feel like I should be trying to do it alone, because it was hard. So my partner sort of asked me, like, what do you want to do options wise, and we asked what time the next midwives would be coming on to shift. We were told 8 a.m. So it being 7:30, I then climbed into the pool and slowed the labour down. And then at 8 o'clock, the new midwives came on shift, and I think they were probably with us by about 8:30. So I really didn't want to go anywhere, but I was prepared to go somewhere, because, you don't always get what you want exactly. But just slowing it down and managing the contractions with birthing pool was enough at that point for, to sort of keep it calm and to keep my nerves at bay. Yeah.
Okay, so that really helped.
Yeah.
Getting in the pool early.
The pool is incredible.
Yeah. They say it's the next best thing to an epidural, using the water.
Right.
Hydrotherapy is the best natural form of pain relief.
I find it.
Do you believe that? You live by that?
I mean, I've never had an epidural, but I would say it's a great form of pain relief. It brings me a lot of comfort. To be honest, I'm astounded that people manage to give birth without a pool. And even at one point, because Aura was born at 10:55 that morning, so I guess I'd been in the pool, well, if I went in, let's say 7:30, and then I was in until 11:55, because we hung out for a bit in the pool afterwards. At some point the water started to cool down, and even when my partner put more heat into it later in the morning, even that again just brought me a huge sense of pain relief. And I don't want to use the word pain, but it was definitely very soothing.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now, you had a water birth the first time, and you've had a water birth second time. Now, what did you do differently second time round from the first time?
So the first time, whilst I'd done, breathing techniques and all of that stuff, it all went out the window when I went into contractions. I think just the surprise of the experience and my nerves that time, because I wasn't sure what was normal, and whether I lost the sensation in the leg at that when I did that, and I thought, oh, that's not right, and I kept on thinking things aren't right. So I wasn't able to sort of stabilize myself and regulate like how I was behaving. So my breathing was insane. It was just not helpful. The second time I knew what to expect, and so I put the audio in, and I just blocked everybody out, including the midwives, including my partner, and I really just concentrated on golden thread breathing, which for me just works for me, which is, I think there's lots of information about this online, but It's when you really control the exhalation of the breath and you visualize a golden thread sort of leaving your mouth, and it just really slows everything down in your body, and it just manages that sensation of letting go, which I think is probably the most essential concept to deal with during labour, is this sort of surrendering and letting go, and not trying to control it, and not trying to make it happen. So yeah, golden thread breathing I did this time, and it made an enormous amount of difference.
Now, what are your top tips you'd give to a first-time mum planning on having a home birth at home? Now that you're an expert, you've had it twice now, what would be your golden tips that you'd give to a first-time mum planning on having a home birth? What's your advice?
I think that, home birth isn't for everybody, and if you think it's something that you would like to have, then make that your birth plan and do your research, and oh dear, and learn as much as you can about the labour process, so that you feel that you've got the right information to make your right decisions for you. Because there are lots of reasons, and there's lots of moments when the home birth comes into question, particularly for people who are afraid, people who like to have medical settings, etc. So just knowing the statistics and the data, and knowing it properly, so that you understand when someone, perhaps a medical professional, is saying to you, it's time to go in and be induced, that you that doesn't scare you on the offset. You just understand that is, a standard procedure after 24 hours of water breaking, so you've got that information, so you're not panicked easily. That's tip number one. Learn as much as you can about labour and about the different birthing options and what is going to be discussed with you by your healthcare providers, your midwives or your doctors, whoever it is, wherever you are. Tip number two, I would say, is try and remain as equanimous as possible. And by that I mean, don't hold on too tightly to what you want and what you don't want, because I think that sort of mindset is, will create struggle in your labour process. So try and stay somewhere in the middle with, this is my idea of how I want this to go, and that's where but if you end up having a emergency C-section, then, it's not a failure. There's no, it's still labour, and, don't take that on as any kind of personal defeat. Labour's, it's a huge process, and it can go so many different ways, and there's no sort of, I don't want people to think that that they fail if they don't get, the A plan that they wrote down.
Just go with the open mind.
Exactly, yeah. Open mind. Have your information so you can make the decisions that will hopefully steer you towards the birth that you want. But if it doesn't go that way, let it go and try and make the best decision for where you're at right there. Yeah. Oh, so tip number three. I would say make sure that anyone who's in the room is incredibly positive. Positive affirmations are where it's at for me. Anyone who is kind of fearful, that will, I don't want to say poison the room, but it will impact the environment. And what you need is an environment where you feel supported, where you're reminded how strong you are, how capable you are, how you've got this. So make sure that anyone who you're going to include in that experience is on board, and they're on board with the energy they need to have and the mindset they need to have, and that they can handle labour. Tip number 4 would be, I think I'd probably say try and get rid of anything external. So a darkened room not particularly large room. Try and have things around you that calm you down. So yeah, the audio file was really great for me. It was a lady just telling me wonderful things about myself and repeat for 24 minutes, and that worked. It did. And you know, she gave us there was visualizations in there about expansion and understanding that with every contraction you're getting closer to your baby, and that with every contraction your cervix is expanding, and just sort of keeping you in that mindset. Oh, duh. And the last one, I would say, final tip. I mean, for me, yeah, it's got to be the birth pool. Just hydrotherapy, like you said. Warm water, weightlessness, that sort of ability to move around comfortably, taking some of the weight off, getting into positions easily because you're supported by the water. Yeah, that would be my tip number 5.
Well, thank you very much, Rebecca. I hope this all helped our YouTube viewers, and remember to share, subscribe and like. Thank you once again. Bye.